Hello guys, you're all welcome to my video today. Today we are actually going to be talking about early theories that were propounded by geographers, geophysicists, you can name them, to explain to us the reasons why we find the Earth's surface a little bit rough, a little bit rugged in its nature. We're talking about actually the various landforms that have occurred on the Earth's surface, and the forces that are actually acting in this planet Earth, most particularly the internal structure of the Earth, that has actually resulted to the landforms that we find them, as well as the rough nature of the continents as we find them drawn on world maps today. So you're welcome. Have your place, sit down, and let us get started to it. Like I earlier mentioned in the beginning of this video, many people have posed questions as regards to the shape of the continental land masses as we find them on the map today. And to respond to these questions, we've had geophysicists, we have geographers, we have scientists, mathematicians, whom have actually propounded theories to explain in detail actually what are the forces that have been operating on the Earth's surface, what are the forces that have been operating within the Earth's interior that has accounted for the various shape that we have on the Earth's surface. Today we are going to look more on, we'll talk more on about a various famous geographer, a geophysicist, who goes by the name Alfred Wegener. Wegener in 1915 actually came up with a theory together with other fellows actually to talk about the shape, the landforms, the morphology that are found on the Earth's surface. I mean, to talk about the forces behind this morphology. Believe me, you're going to enjoy this video, and please remember to always subscribe, remember to always like and share the video, let it go out there, so that it might also get to help someone out there who is preparing for an examination or who want to get an in-depth geographical knowledge about certain aspects that has always been a problem to him or her. All right, let's quickly look at what we are talking about here. Okay, so like I earlier mentioned, one of the first geographers or geophysicists to explain to us a theory, to give us a theory that explains to us the shape that are found on the Earth's surface is actually Alfred Wegener in one of his books, which he titled it The Origin of Continents and Oceans. And that book was published in 1915. We are going to look at what Wegener, the content of his theory, what he talked about in his theory actually, so much so that we get an in-depth appreciation as well as maybe critics or criticisms as regards to his theory. Now, looking about the content of the theory of continental drift as propounded by Wegener. Wegener, first of all, was of the opinion that the continent in the beginning, just about 200,000 years ago, the continent was actually one land, and this one land he referred to it as Pangaea. He called it Pangaea, which means all land together. And to him, this land was actually surrounded by or bounded by a single ocean, which he named it Panthalassa. Let's quickly look at his diagram, which he tried to mention about the Pangaea and Panthalassa. When we look here, we see, for example, that the continents were actually close to each other, and this was the land which he referred to in his book titled The Origin of Continents and Oceans. This was the land he talked about when he talked about the Pangaea. And when we look at it, the blue nature or the blue earth that we see there actually is Panthalassa. That is a major ocean that surrounded this mainland. So, what is he trying to say here? That when we look at the world map, for example, it is not originally the shape as it was in the beginning, about 200,000 years ago. To him, he had the impression that the Earth actually, the land masses were actually grouped together called the Pangaea, as I earlier mentioned, and there was just one single ocean that bounded or surrounded this landmass, and he referred to this ocean Panthalassa. Now, what happened after some years ago? about 50 million years again, what actually transpired? We discovered that this single land has actually been in a constant motion, has been drifting, and he has been splitting and drifting apart. And since he has been splitting and drifting apart, it has actually resulted to the formation of two protocontinents, which Wegener referred to as Laurasia, which was found in the northern hemisphere, and he called that which is found in the southern hemisphere Gondwana land. And to him, these two continents actually were being separated now by a sea, which he referred to as the Sea of Thyt. Okay, now, after some years also passed by, the continent Laurasia and Gondwana land continue to be drifting or splitting apart, and it has actually resulted now to different continents that we have, as we can find them here. These are the two protocontinents that he made mention of. In the northern hemisphere, he spoke about Laurasia, as you can see, and in the southern hemisphere, he also spoke about Gondwana land. Now, our interest also is on, if we take a look at the arrows there pointing, is telling to us the various motions or the directions in which the continents are actually drifting. They are drifting in different directions. Now, after 50 million years ago, this continent, Laurasia, actually split again and drifted apart into the three main continents that we have in the northern hemisphere. He talked about North America, he talked about Europe, and as well as Asia. So Laurasia in the northern hemisphere split and drifted to form the three main continents which we have in North America, which we have as North America, we have Europe, we have Asia. And the Gondwana land on its own part actually also drifted and split apart. And it permits me, actually split and drifted apart into four major continents. These four major continents are what we have today: South America, Africa, Australia, and Antarctica. So guys, you get an understanding here that the seven continents as we have them today actually resulted from the splitting and drifting of the two protocontinents, or even the single continent which he made mention of in the beginning, which he called Pangaea. I hope you're following up and you're understanding the lesson totally. Okay, now, what are then the strengths of Wegener's theory? When I talk about the strength here, I'm referring actually to his arguments that he held so firm to prove or to give as evidence for the drifting and the splitting and drifting of continents apart. Now, if you look at this diagram or the image that we have here, it shows to us certain types of animals that in some years passed by. These animals were actually found in these various continents. The continent that we have here, we have South America, we have Africa, we have India, we have Antarctica. Just as also we have plant species. Now, actually, the Premier say that they were the fossils of these plants and animals that were found, maybe through doc of history, as historians will tell us, and it helped us to understand that these animals actually were found in all these continents because the continents were one time very close to each other. That is just the first evidence, but one of the most important evidence which is visible and which is physical and which we can hold firmly and accept with Wegener is the fact that physically we can see that the continents also, if brought together, can fit so squarely to each other. It is true that when they are brought together, they might not really give a really fitted landform as it was in the beginning. The reason being that in the course of the splitting and drifting, some of these landforms actually resulted as debris. You explained to us already the occurrence of islands and some little landforms that are formed in in the middle of an ocean, for example. You have things like Madagascar. You have islands like Greenland, which is one of the largest islands. In fact, the largest island in the world. And these islands actually were formed from the debris, the accumulation of debris that resulted from the breaking and drifting of the large land masses, which we call them continents today. So, if you look at, for example, the east coast of South America and the west coast of Africa, if brought very close to each other, they are going to fit so perfectly. And if you look also Antarctica and South Africa, I beg your pardon, you discover that if they are also brought very close to each other, as well as Australia, they are going to actually fit so squarely. That is not just all. We also have evidence of ancient glaciation. We know that glacier actually is glacier is a type of precipitation which occur mostly in very cold areas, most particularly around the polar regions of the world. And if glacier, for example, is being found, if ancient glaciation was discovered in places like the Congo Basin and the Amazon Basin, which we all know actually it is found in the equatorial region, where the sun is always often overhead, and in such areas automatically you get to understand that since the sun is often overhead, there will be the melting of ice, snow, but it's not the case. So traces of this ancient glaciation were found in the Congo and the Amazon Basin. This simply tells us without doubt that both areas were actually around the polar regions before drifting to their original position. Similar also is the case with Antarctica, where ancient coal deposits were found in Antarctica. Coal, as we know, also is formed from the decomposition of dead plants, fossils, in fact, which have actually decomposed for thousands of years, maybe about 200,000 years, and which have decomposed and formed that energy resource which we call coal. And talking about dead plants and animals, we understand that the highest density of plants and animal species are mostly found in the equatorial region, where it is warm and has favored abundant amount of rainfall, which has also favored the generation of trees, which will actually cause the plants to grow, and when the plants actually die, decomposes, they form the coal. Now, Antarctica being found in the South Pole, and having traces already of ancient coal, normally tells us that Antarctica also was once actually around the equatorial region before drifting to its original position. Similar also is the case with geological evidence, like rocks of similar age and type, where formation in particular was actually found in the west coast of Africa, as well as in the east coast of Brazil. And these areas, like you see on the map there, we've brought together, they are going to fit so squarely. It tells us that automatically these two areas were closer to each other when these rocks were actually being formed. And the result why the consequence of it is the evidence which we are seeing actually, that they are found in these places today, even though drifted apart from each other. Okay, guys, these actually are some of the strengths that holds for Wegener's theory. But now, I want to believe that his theory did not actually go by without a lot of questions and people asking, like, was his theory actually authentic? Was his theory, does it really explain to us the occurrence of the various landforms as we have on the Earth's surface? And what about the oceans? When we talk about the Earth crust, I think we are talking about the seismic layer as well as the seismic layer. And if we look at it, Wegener had some weaknesses. Among his weaknesses was the fact that he spoke much about the continental land masses and said nothing actually about the oceanic crust. Moreover, his theory was actually embedded in his book titled The Origin of Continents and Ocean, which he spoke much about the continents, and he said virtually nothing about the oceans, or the ocean floor, permit me. And then similarly to he just spoke, like he was speaking without any backing force behind to tell us about the force, the energy or the force that will cause the continent to split and drift apart, the mechanism that will cause the continent to drift apart, and what were the consequences, or what was the aftermath when this continent drifted apart. It's because of all these weaknesses and more that other theories had to come in, and one of those theory, guys, is actually the unifying theory of plate tectonics. Believe me, you're going to enjoy that theory. You just need to watch this video, and remember to subscribe. And when you subscribe, it is very important that you always notify with the notification bell, so much so that when I post to you the next video, we talk about plate tectonics, you are going to enjoy it. I really hope that this video has answered some questions, has actually softened the minds of some people, and I pray that if you have done so to you, please kindly leave on my page some comments, as well as any critique that will help to build as well as Intelligentsia Network. We are always very grateful for your patronage. We love you so much because you're always behind us, trying to giving to us what we need to improve. So guys, we thank you so much. We are always grateful.